In 1850, as part of the Compromise of 1850, the South gets a new fugitive slave law. And among other things, it allows for the appointment of a federal commissioner in every county in the United States.
It created an entire mechanism for recapturing fugitive slaves. For instance, if you were a commissioner that granted a slaveholder the right to take his slave back to the South, you got more money than if you said, no, you couldn't take the person back.
The law itself is very unfair. It does not give the alleged fugitive slave a right to testify at his own hearing, so that the alleged fugitive can't say, you've got the wrong person.
It said to people in the North, whether they were pro-abolitionists or anti-abolitionists, that they had to now become, in effect, either directly slave catchers or supporters of people who wanted to catch fugitive slaves. This changes the entire political mix.
Most Northerners had no first-hand experience of slavery. When slave catchers came to their towns and cities, many witnessed for the first time its injury and injustice.
In many cases, there are attempts to retrieve people who actually had run away from slavery, but had been away from slavery for a very long time. 10, 15, 20 years. They now had families. They had perhaps owned property in the North. And it struck Northerners as just outrageous that somebody could come along and grab one of their neighbors, the father of his freeborn children in Pennsylvania or Ohio, the husband of a freeborn black woman in one of those states, and simply snatch him and bring him back to slavery.
The Fugitive Slave Law turned many citizens who were formerly indifferent to slavery into abolitionists.
We went to bed one night old-fashioned, conservative, compromise Union Whigs, and waked up stark mad abolitionists.
The Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society instructed that the law should be denounced, resisted, disobeyed, and its enforcement on Massachusetts soil rendered impossible.
By and large, there was open resistance, declared resistance to the law. And the communities organized to make sure that fugitives within their midst, or fugitives who were passing through their community, would not be taken.
Wisconsin declared the Fugitive Slave Act unconstitutional. The Chicago City Council resolved not to cooperate with federal marshals in the enforcement of the law. And the mayor of New York City vowed that his officers would not assist in the capture and transport of fugitives.
One of the ironies of this period is that the states' writers here are the people who are in favor of racial equality, and the people who are opposed to states' rights turn out to be the Southerners. The states' rights arguments throughout the 1850s are made by abolitionists who want their state to be able to protect people in their jurisdiction from the oppression of the national government. What we forget, and this is, again, very hard, I think, for Americans to come to terms with, is the Constitution is a pro-slavery document.
The hounds are baying on my track. Oh, Christians, will you send me back?
For abolitionists such as Theodore Parker and William Lloyd Garrison, the higher law of God, as revealed through one's own conscience, superseded the man-made laws that sustained slavery.
Garrison's position is that the Constitution was a wonderful phrase, a covenant with death and an agreement with hell.
There is a higher law, and you know it. It is a rule for political action, and you must obey it.
The non-compliance of anti-slavery agitators and higher law proponents did not have a significant effect on the law's execution, but it was widely publicized in both the North and the South. In Boston, where abolitionism was rampant, sympathizers gave refuge to escaped slaves, and on several occasions even snatched them back out of the hands of their captors. The arrest of Anthony Burns in Boston in 1854 brought the situation to a showdown.
I want that man set free in the streets of Boston. If that man leaves the city of Boston, Massachusetts is a conquered state.
When abolitionists attempted to rescue Burns by force, the attempt failed, leaving one man dead. Their attempts to prevent his departure by legal means were no more successful. And when they tried to buy his freedom, his owner was willing, but the court refused to allow it. To prevent further attempts at rescue, the state assigned 22 companies of militia to guard the prisoner. And President Pierce, determined to prove that the federal government would back up the Fugitive Slave Law with force if necessary, ordered Marines, cavalry, and artillery to Boston. When Burns was marched through the streets to a ship waiting in Boston Harbor, thousands of citizens lined the streets to protest his removal. Buildings were draped in black, and the American flag hung upside down.
And as I thought of liberty marched handcuffed down that swarded street, the solid earth beneath my feet reeled fluid as the sea.
Several weeks later, at an abolitionist gathering on the 4th of July, William Lloyd Garrison publicly set fire to the Constitution.
So perish all compromises with tyranny, and let all the people say, Amen.